The warning signs. Dr. Juniper Vale's hands trembled as she studied the holographic readouts floating above her workspace. The ancient artifact pulsed with an eerily familiar blue light, the seventh one this month to spontaneously activate after millennia of silence. Around her, the research facility on Kepler 892 hummed with activity, but she barely noticed the other scientists rushing past her station. "This can't be coincidence," she muttered, brushing a strand of silver-streaked black hair from her face. The symbols etched into the artifact's surface matched those found on 6 other worlds, each one beginning to glow within days of each other. After 15 years studying xenoarchaeology, Juniper had never seen anything like it. Her comm unit chimed. "Dr. Vale, the Confederation Council is ready for your presentation." She took a deep breath, gathering her data tablets. This was her chance to warn them. The patterns were clear. Something was coming. Something that had threatened the galaxy once before. The council chamber's vast dome stretched high above her head, representatives from 30 species arranged in concentric rings. Most watched her with polite disinterest as she began her presentation. "Honorable council members, thank you for hearing me today. What I'm about to share concerns the safety of every civilization in known space." She projected a map showing the locations of the activated artifacts. These devices were created by the predecessors, a species that vanished 50,000 years ago. They're responding to something approaching our galaxy, the same thing that may have caused the predecessor's extinction. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Counselor Dex, a towering Etheri with crystalline skin, leaned forward. "What evidence do you have of this threat, Dr. Vale?" The artifact's energy signatures match descriptions and predecessor records of weapons used against entities they called the Consuming Dark. "My team has translated portions of their warnings. They speak of beings that devour not just matter and energy, but consciousness itself." "Fairy tales," rumbled Counselor Vrox of the Crank's Empire, his scaled face showing disdain. "The predecessors vanished because their sun went nova. These activations are likely random technological degradation." Juniper shook her head. "The statistical probability of 7 devices activating simultaneously by chance is astronomical. And we've detected gravitational anomalies at the edge of charted space, consistent with the predecessor's descriptions of the enemy's approach." "Dr. Vale," interrupted High Chancellor Mayer, her silver robe shimmering, "while we appreciate your dedication to your research, the Confederation faces real, immediate challenges. Border disputes, piracy, resource shortages. We cannot divert resources based on archaeological speculation. But thank you for your presentation. We will take it under advisement." Juniper left the chamber, her shoulders slumping. As she waited for the transport back to her lab, a tall figure stepped out of the shadows, a human man with close-cropped dark hair and the weathered face of a spacer. "Dr. Vale?" "Captain Nikolai Volkov of the independent vessel Starcatcher. I found your presentation fascinating." She eyed him warily. "You were in the chamber? I didn't see you among the officials." He smiled slightly. "I have ways of accessing places I'm not strictly invited. I'm something of a collector of predecessor artifacts myself, though my methods of acquisition aren't always entirely official." "A smuggler, you mean?" "I prefer independent archaeological resource specialist. But labels aside, I believe you, and I think I can help." Before she could respond, her comm unit blared an emergency alert. Her research assistant's panicked voice came through. "Doctor, you need to get back here now. The artifact, it's changed. And we're picking up massive energy signatures from deep space." Nikolai's expression turned grave. "I have a fast ship. We should go." Juniper hesitated only a moment before nodding. Something told her she could trust this stranger, and she needed allies. They reached her lab to find chaos. The artifact now pulsed with intense crimson light, floating unsupported above its containment field. Holographic symbols spilled from its surface, filling the air with urgent warnings. "It's a beacon," Juniper breathed, translating the ancient script. "It's not just warning us, it's marking targets. Worlds with sufficient population density to feed them," Nikolai finished grimly. "Like leaving a trail of breadcrumbs." Her assistant rushed up, face pale. Doctor, long-range sensors are detecting something massive entering the outer rim. Multiple objects, moving faster than any known ships. Juniper met Nikolai's eyes. How fast is your ship, Captain? Fast enough to reach the nearest artifact site before the Confederation bureaucrats finish filing their reports. But we'll be breaking about 15 interstellar laws. She began downloading data to portable drives. The laws won't matter if I'm right about what's coming. We need to understand these devices. They might be our only defense. As they hurried toward the spaceport, the sky above the research facility rippled with strange lights. The artifact's pulse quickened, like a frightened heartbeat. Nikolai's ship, the Starcatcher, proved to be a sleek vessel clearly modified for speed and stealth. As they lifted off, Juniper watched her lab disappear below, wondering if she'd ever see it again. The artifact, carefully stored in a shielded container, continued its ominous pulsing. Where to? Nikolai asked as they broke atmosphere. Juniper pulled up a star chart. The nearest activated artifact is on Helios Prime, in the Carina sector. We can reach it in 3 days at maximum speed. Assuming nothing tries to stop us. The Confederation doesn't like people interfering with their archaeological sites. Then we'll have to be creative. She studied the artifact's pulsing light. We don't have much time. Whatever's out there in the dark, it's waited 50,000 years to return. And this time, it won't leave any warnings for future archaeologists to find. As the Starcatcher jumped to faster-than-light speed, neither of them noticed the shadow that passed through the space they'd just vacated, a darkness deeper than the void between stars, hungry after its long journey between galaxies. The warning signs were clear, but would anyone heed them in time? The race to save civilization had begun, and for now, their only weapons were ancient artifacts, a smuggler's ship, and the determination of a xenoarchaeologist who refused to let history repeat itself. The stars streaked past the viewports as they fled toward Helios Prime, each light representing another world that would soon face the greatest threat in galactic history. Behind them, in the darkness between worlds, something ancient and patient began to stir. The consuming dark was awakening, and this time, it was hungrier than ever. First contact. Admiral Zara Curry stood on the bridge of the CGS Hyperion, watching the holographic display with growing horror. Another colony had gone dark, New Haven in the Centauri sector, population 6 million. That made 5 worlds in 8 days. Status report, she commanded, her voice steady despite the weight in her chest. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically at their stations, monitoring the unprecedented crisis unfolding across the outer rim. Lieutenant Marcus Zhang looked up from his tactical display, his face ashen. No response to communications, Admiral. Long-range scans show. There's nothing left. The colony's biomass has been completely consumed. Even the atmosphere is gone. Zara clenched her fists. The Confederation's most advanced warship, and they'd arrived too late. Again. Any sign of the attacking force? Nothing on conventional sensors, Marcus replied. Just the same gravitational distortions we've seen at the other sites. Whatever they are, they don't show up on our scans until they're right on top of you. The words of that xenoarchaeologist, Dr. Vale, echoed in Zara's mind. She'd warned the Council weeks ago, but they dismissed her. Now billions were dead, and the Confederation's mighty fleet seemed powerless to stop it. Admiral, called out Commander Radha Patel from the communications station. Priority message from Fleet Command. They're ordering all ships to fall back to core worlds. They're abandoning the outer rim. Zara's dark eyes flashed with anger. Unacceptable. There are still 12 billion civilians in these sectors. We can't just dash. The ship's AI interrupted, its holographic avatar flickering to life. Warning. Gravitational anomalies detected. Multiple contacts emerging from subspace. The bridge view screen filled with darkness, not the normal black of space, but something deeper, hungrier. It moved like liquid shadow, forming into massive shapes that defied physics and sanity. The consuming dark, Zara whispered. This was humanity's first clear view of the enemy that had been devouring their worlds. Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat. The Hyperion's advanced weapon systems came online: particle beams, quantum torpedoes, plasma cannons. The pride of the Confederation fleet unleashed everything it had against the shadow creatures. It might as well have been shooting at smoke. The energy weapons passed straight through the entities. Physical projectiles disappeared into their mass without effect. And they were getting closer. New contact. Marcus shouted. Small vessel dropping out of FTL. It's the Starcatcher. They're broadcasting an emergency signal. Zara recognized the name from the intelligence briefings. The smuggler's ship that had helped Dr. Vale escape Kepler 892 before it was destroyed. Get them on screen. DR. Vale's face appeared, looking exhausted but determined. Behind her, Captain Volkov worked the ship's controls. Admiral Curry, thank God we found you. We've decoded more of the predecessor warnings. These entities, they're not just physical beings. They exist partly in another dimension. That's why conventional weapons can't touch them. That would have been useful to know earlier, Zara said tersely. We're about to engage 3 of them. Don't. Normal weapons will just make them stronger. They feed on energy. But we found something. The artifacts aren't just warnings, they're blueprints. The predecessors built devices that could affect cross-dimensional space. We have the designs. Zara glanced at her tactical display. The shadow entities were surrounding them, moving with terrible purpose. How long to build these devices? With current technology? Weeks, maybe months. But we don't have to fight them yet. The artifacts also showed us how to hide from them. We can mask our energy signatures, become invisible to their senses. Captain Volkov cut in. We're transmitting the specifications now. But you have to shut down all non-essential systems, including weapons. Zara's first instinct was to refuse. Everything in her training screamed against powering down in the face of the enemy. But she'd seen enough to know their current approach was suicide. Do it, she ordered. All hands, emergency shutdown protocols. Maintain life support and minimal propulsion only. The mighty warship went dark, running on barely more power than a civilian shuttle. Around them, the shadow entities paused, as if confused by their prey's disappearance. It's working, Juniper breathed. Admiral, we need to get to the Carina sector. There's a predecessor facility there, not just artifacts, but an entire complex. If we can restore it. The Carina sector is under Crank's control, Zara pointed out. They've sealed their borders since the attacks began. Then we'll need to convince them to help, Nikolai said. Because if these things keep feeding at their current rate, there won't be any borders left to defend in a month. Zara made her decision. Plot a course to the Crank's border. We'll run dark all the way. And Dr. Vale? You better be right about that facility. As the ships slipped away, the shadow entities continued their hunt, frustrated by the sudden disappearance of their prey. But they were patient. They had consumed countless civilizations before, and this one would be no different. In the darkness of space, more of them were awakening. The feast had only begun. On the Hyperion's bridge, Zara watched her sensor displays, tracking the movements of the enemy they now knew as the consuming dark. Their patterns were becoming clearer. They weren't just feeding randomly. They were herding survivors toward the core worlds, concentrating their prey. Send word to any ships you can reach, she told Commander Patel. Hidden channels only, minimal power. Tell them how to mask their signatures. We need to buy time. Time for what? Marcus asked quietly. Zara looked at the star app, where the shadow of extinction was spreading across human space. Time to learn how to fight back. Time to convince our enemies to become allies. Time to prove that life itself is stronger than the darkness between stars. They fled through the night, running silent through space lanes once bustling with commerce and activity. Behind them, worlds went dark one by one. But they carried with them something the consuming dark couldn't devour. Hope, hidden in the ancient blueprints of a long-dead race. The real question was whether they could turn that hope into salvation before it was too late. In the command center of the predecessor facility on Helios Prime, another artifact activated, its light pulsing in harmony with the others across the galaxy. The message was the same one the predecessors had left 50,000 years ago. They can be fought. They can be beaten. But only together. The galaxy was about to learn whether that ancient wisdom would be enough to save them all. The Hidden Archive. Chief Engineer Kinzo Tanaka had never seen anything like the predecessor facility beneath the surface of Carina 4. The vast chambers stretched for kilometers, filled with technology that shouldn't exist, crystalline computers that operated on quantum principles far beyond current science. Power systems that drew energy from dimensions humans hadn't even discovered yet. Fascinating, isn't it? The voice came from behind him, speaking in the liquid tones of the Ethri language. Your species' reaction to predecessor technology always reminds me of children discovering their parents' tools. Kinzo turned to face the speaker. She was tall and slender, her skin having the translucent quality of flowing water, with what looked like stars swimming in her depths. You must be Mary. Dr. Vale said you'd be joining us. The Ethri woman inclined her head. My people encountered the consuming dark 3 centuries ago, in another galaxy. We were not prepared. Only a few thousand of us escaped, using technology similar to what you see here. 3 centuries? Kinzo's eyes widened. You've been running from them all this time? Not running. Preparing. Gathering knowledge. Waiting for the right moment and the right allies. She gestured at the facility around them. This is one of 7 such archives scattered across the galaxy. The predecessors built them as backup plans in case their primary defense failed. Kinzo walked to a control panel, its surface coming alive at his touch. The holographic displays were unlike anything he'd seen in 20 years of engineering. And their primary defense did fail. They still vanished. Not exactly. Mary moved to stand beside him, her liquid form rippling with internal light. They transcended. The technology they created to fight the consuming dark changed them. They evolved into energy beings themselves, but unlike the dark, they chose to leave this dimension entirely, seeking new forms of existence. Before Kinzo could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Dr. Vale's voice came over the comm system. We've got company. Confederation warships in orbit. They must have tracked the Hyperion. Kinzo swore under his breath. They've been working for weeks to understand the predecessor technology, making breakthrough after breakthrough. But the Confederation, paralyzed by fear and bureaucracy, had declared all predecessor sites restricted zones, claiming the ancient technology was too dangerous to meddle with. We need more time, he said, fingers flying over the control panels. The phase conductor is almost ready for testing. If we can get it working, dash. Time is something we don't have, Mary interrupted. Look, the facility's sensors showed multiple ships landing on the surface. Confederation Marines, coming to shut them down. Dr. Vale. Kinzo called into his comm. How long until they reach us? 20 minutes, maybe less. Admiral Corey is trying to stall them, but her authority only goes so far. They're saying we've committed treason by accessing restricted technology. Mary's form pulsed with angry light. Treason? We're trying to save their lives. The dark has already consumed 30 worlds. In another month, they'll reach the core systems. Kinzo made a decision. Juniper, get everyone to the lower levels. Mary and I will handle this. He turned to the Ethri woman. You said your people encountered this technology before. Can you help me interface with it directly? Her liquid eyes widened. It's dangerous. The neural load could kill you. Better than letting the Confederation shut us down. He began connecting neural interface cables to his temples. The phase conductor is the key. If we can demonstrate it working. Mary hesitated, then placed her flowing hands on the control panel. I will help stabilize the connection. But you must be careful. The predecessor systems operate on levels your mind isn't designed to process. The interface activated, and Kinzo's world exploded into light. Information flooded his consciousness, multidimensional equations, quantum principles that made his brain burn, engineering concepts that redefined his understanding of reality. Through it all, Mary's presence anchored him, helping him navigate the overwhelming data stream. Above, the Confederation forces were breaching the facility's outer defenses. But in the depths of the archive, something ancient was awakening. The phase conductor hummed to life, its crystalline structure resonating with energies from beyond normal space. Kinzo felt it through the neural interface, a weapon that could reach across dimensions, disrupting the very essence of the consuming dark. Through the haze of data overwhelming his mind, he heard boots on metal as the Marines reached their level. Orders being shouted. Weapons being charged. "Stop what you're doing," a voice commanded. "Step away from the controls." Kinzo couldn't step away. The interface had him locked in place as the phase conductor reached full power. Through security cameras, he saw the Marines advancing, saw Dr. Vale and Captain Volkov trying to reason with them. Then Mary did something unexpected. Her liquid form expanded, filling the chamber with shifting light. "Look," she commanded, her voice resonating with otherworldly power. The facility's holographic systems activated, projecting images of worlds being consumed by the dark. Not just recent attacks, but records from across millions of years, dozens of galaxies. Civilizations rising and falling, being devoured by the hungry void. "This is what we face," Mary declared. "This is why we need the predecessor technology. Your weapons cannot harm them. Your shields cannot stop them. But this." She gestured at the phase conductor, now pulsing with cross-dimensional energy. "This can save us all." The Marine commander lowered his weapon slowly, staring at the apocalyptic images. "Those are confirmed attacks? Not simulations. Recorded by the predecessors themselves," Dr. Vale confirmed. "And by Mary's people. And now by us. The evidence is irrefutable." A tense moment passed. Then the commander touched his calm unit. "Command, we need to reassess this situation. The research team here, they might be onto something." Kinzo barely heard the exchange. Through the neural interface, he was seeing something extraordinary, the full scope of the predecessor archive, not just this facility but all 7 across the galaxy. And in that pattern, he recognized something the ancient builders had encoded into their very design. "It's not just weapons," he gasped, his mind reeling from the revelation. "The archives. They're not meant to work separately. They're pieces of something bigger, something that could change everything." As his consciousness expanded through the predecessor systems, Kinzo glimpsed the truth that had been waiting 50,000 years to be discovered. The question was whether they could unlock it before the consuming dark devoured them all. In orbit above Carina 4, gravity sensors detected more dark entities entering the system. The feast was far from over. But for the first time, prey was becoming predator, and the hunters were about to learn what it meant to be hunted. Unity in darkness. Ambassador Lyra Desai stood before the emergency summit of the Galactic Species Council, her white diplomatic robes a stark contrast to the darkness of space visible through the station's vast windows. Representatives from 17 species filled the chamber, many of whom had been bitter enemies mere months ago. "The consuming dark has taken 58 worlds," she began, her voice carrying across the tense silence. "They've breached the mid-rim defensive line. The Kronax Empire has lost its throne world. The Ethery Collective's primary processing hub is gone. The Confederation's mighty fleets are in retreat. We cannot survive alone." High General Zorax of the Kronax slammed his armored fist on the table, scales bristling with rage. "You expect us to trust the Confederation? The same people who called us barbaric expansionists? Who sanctioned our worlds? I expect you to choose survival," Lyra replied calmly. "The dark doesn't discriminate between our civilizations. We're all equally digestible." On the massive display behind her, live feeds showed another world being consumed. The darkness swept across continents like liquid shadow, leaving nothing behind. Not even ashes remained. "My team at the Carina facility has made a breakthrough," she continued. "Chief Engineer Tanaka, please share your findings." Kinzo's hologram appeared, looking haggard but determined. Neural interface scars still marked his temples. The predecessor archives aren't just separate facilities, they're nodes of a larger machine. A device that could affect space-time across the entire galaxy. But activating it requires technology from all our species. "Impossible," declared Archon Vec of the Ethery. "Our systems are incompatible." "That's exactly why we need them," Kinzo explained. The predecessors discovered that the consuming dark exists partially in quantum superposition. That's why conventional weapons can't harm them. But each of our species developed technology that operates on different quantum frequencies. Combined correctly, we could create a resonance that would force the dark into a single state, make them vulnerable. Murmurs filled the chamber. Mary stepped forward, her liquid form rippling. My people learned this truth too late. We had the theoretical knowledge but lacked the diverse technological base needed to implement it. That's why we've waited, watching for a galaxy with enough variety of advanced civilizations to make it work. And what guarantee do we have that this will work? Demanded Zorax. We would need to commit most of our remaining ships, resources, and technical expertise. The chamber doors slid open. Admiral Kuri entered, supporting a limping Captain Volkov. Behind them came Dr. Vale, clutching a data core. We have proof, Zara announced. The Starratcher just returned from a scouting mission to the Outer Rim. Show them. Juniper plugged the data core into the chamber's systems. The display filled with sensor readings of a small-scale test of the phase conductor technology. We managed to force a portion of one entity into normal space, Nikolai explained, wincing from his injuries. Just for a few seconds, but in that time, the recording showed the dark entity becoming briefly visible and vulnerable. Energy weapons that had passed harmlessly through it before now caused obvious damage. The theory is sound, Kenzo continued. But scaling it up requires technology beyond any single species. We need Chronax power cores, Etheri quantum processors, Confederation gravitic arrays, and more, all working in perfect harmony. Lyra watched the assembled representatives. Generations of mistrust and conflict hung heavy in the air, but so did fear of extinction. The predecessors left us more than weapons, she said softly. They left us a choice. Stand together or die alone. High General Zorax was the first to speak. The Chronax Empire will never bow to another power. He paused, his scaled features shifting. But we will fight alongside allies against a worthy enemy. One by one, the other representatives made similar declarations. Ancient rivalries didn't vanish, but they became secondary to survival. We'll need to coordinate our forces, Admiral Kuri said. The dark entities are converging on the core systems. We have weeks at most. The predecessor facility on Helios Prime will serve as our command center, Lyra announced. It's the most intact of the archives, and its location is defensible. As the representatives began discussing logistics, Dr. Vale pulled Lyra aside. There's something we haven't told them, she whispered. Something Kenzo found in the neural interface data. What? The device won't just force the dark into normal space. It'll create a quantum resonance throughout the galaxy. Every species connected to the network will be changed, just like the predecessors were. Lyra's eyes widened. Changed how? We don't know exactly. But we'll be touching fundamental forces we barely understand. Fighting beings that exist partially outside our reality. It could trigger an evolutionary leap in all involved species. Should we tell them? Juniper glanced at the representatives, now working together despite millennia of conflict. They're already choosing to evolve, from enemies to allies. Maybe this is just the next step. The next weeks were a blur of activity. Ships from all species converged on designated coordinates, carrying components for the massive device. The dark pressed closer, perhaps sensing the threat gathering against them. Kenzo worked with teams of scientists from every civilization, combining technologies in ways never before attempted. The predecessor archives hummed with power as their true purpose was finally realized. On the eve of activation, Lyra stood with her unlikely allies on the command deck of Helios Prime. Chronax warriors worked alongside Etheri technicians. Confederation officers coordinated with former enemies. Even if this fails, she told Mary, we've achieved something remarkable. The Etheri woman's liquid form pulsed with agreement. Perhaps that was the predecessor's true purpose. Not just to give us weapons, but to show us that survival requires unity. Alarms blared. Long-range sensors detected massive dark entities entering the system. Hundreds of them, more than they'd ever seen in one place. "They know what we're planning," Admiral Curry announced. "All ships, battle positions. We need to buy time for the device to power up." As the combined fleet moved to engage the Dark, Lyra watched the quantum resonance chambers charging. Species that had been trying to destroy each other months ago were now linking their technologies, their minds, their very futures. Unity in darkness. Evolution through adversity. The galaxy was about to change forever. The only question was whether they would survive that change. Dawn's Edge. Commander Rook Blackstar stood at the helm of the combined fleet, watching as the consuming dark approached Helios Prime. The void between stars seemed to writhe with their presence, 1,000 massive entities moving as one terrible force. "All ships report ready," his executive officer announced. Kronax battle groups in position. E3 sensor nets active. Confederation heavy weapons powered up. Rook nodded, his cybernetic eyes scanning tactical displays. After 15 years commanding special operations, he'd never seen anything like this fleet. Vessels from every major civilization flying in formation, protecting the massive device they'd built around the predecessor facility. "Status of the quantum resonance array?" he asked. "Charging at 82%, reported Dr. Vale from her station." The xenoarchaeologist had come a long way from theoretical research. "But the Dark will reach us before it's ready. Then we hold them off." Rook opened a channel to the fleet. "All vessels, execute battle plan threshold. Remember your training. Don't engage directly. Hit and fade. Keep them distracted. Buy us time." The combined fleet moved with practiced precision, the result of weeks of joint drills. Kronax warships led the charge, their advanced shields modified with E3 quantum technology. Confederation vessels provided fire support, while lighter craft darted between them, laying gravimetric mines. The dark entities responded, spreading out to engulf the fleet. But something was different about their movement. "They're not attacking randomly," Kinzo observed from the engineering station, neural interface cables still connecting him to the facility's systems. "They're being strategic. They've learned." "Good," Rook replied. "That means they can fear." The battle erupted across space. Even with their combined technologies, they couldn't harm the Dark directly. But they could slow them down, confuse them, scatter their formation. A Kronax dreadnought exploded as a dark entity passed through it, consuming its energy. 3 Confederation cruisers vanished into the void. An E3 carrier dissolved into quantum particles. "Resonance array at 91%, Juniper reported. But we're losing ships too fast." "Commander." Mary's liquid form rippled with urgency. "I'm detecting something in the quantum field." "The Dark, they're trying to communicate." "What?" Before she could explain, space itself seemed to tear open. A massive dark entity, larger than any they'd seen, materialized directly above the facility. "By the stars," Rook whispered. "That's their leader." The entity pulsed with impossible energies. And in their minds, they all heard it speak. "Why do you resist? We are inevitable. We are hunger itself." "Keep the array charging," Rook ordered. "This changes nothing." "But it changes everything," the entity responded. "We have consumed 1,000,000 galaxies. We have devoured civilizations far greater than yours. The predecessors fled rather than face us." "You're wrong," Juniper said suddenly. "I understand now." "Kinzo, the neural interface, show them what you found." Kinzo's consciousness merged deeper with the predecessor systems. Holographic displays filled the command center, showing the truth hidden in the ancient data. "The predecessors didn't flee," he announced. "They were trying to communicate with you. To show you another way. You know nothing. We know what you are," Mary added, her liquid form pulsing with revelation. "You're not just hunters. You're lost. Hungry because you've forgotten how to be anything else." The quantum resonance array hummed, reaching full power. But instead of attacking, Kinzo redirected its energy. "The device," he explained through gritted teeth, fighting to control the overwhelming power. "It's not just a weapon. It's a bridge." Space rippled as the array activated. The dark entity tried to withdraw, but the quantum field held it in place. And in their minds, they all saw it. Images from a time before time. The Dark had once been like them, creatures of matter and energy, learning to transcend their forms. But something went wrong. They became trapped between states, able only to consume, to fill an endless hunger. The predecessors hadn't built weapons. They built a way to help the dark complete their transformation. You don't have to devour, Juniper said to the entity. You can evolve, like the predecessors did, like we're ready to do. The dark entity pulsed with something that might have been uncertainty. There is another way? Look around you, Rook said, gesturing at the combined fleet. We were all enemies once. We learned to change, to grow beyond what we were. Mary moved forward, her liquid form reaching toward the darkness. Let us help you finish what you started so long ago. Not through consumption, but through transformation. For a moment that felt like eternity, the entity was silent. Then, remember, we were not always this. The quantum resonance array pulsed with blinding light. The dark entity's form began to shift, not dissolving but transforming. Around them, the other entities gathered, drawn to the change in their leader. All ships, hold position, Rook ordered. Let it happen. The transformation swept across space like a wave of light. Dark entities didn't vanish, they evolved, their consciousness expanding into new forms of existence. And as the quantum field touched the combined fleet, they began to change too. Kinzo saw it through the neural interface, species boundaries blurring, consciousness expanding. Not losing identity, but transcending it, growing into something greater. The galaxy itself seemed to shift as matter and energy realigned. When it was over, nothing would be quite the same. Rook watched in awe as his cybernetic systems merged seamlessly with his organic form. Mary's liquid body became a bridge between states of matter. Juniper felt her mind expanding to encompass understanding that had previously been impossible. The predecessors knew, she said softly. They knew that fighting the dark wasn't the answer. The only way forward was to help them, and ourselves, take the next step. Above Helios Prime, the transformed dark entities danced through dimensions, no longer consuming but creating. The combined fleet hung in space, its crews forever changed but still themselves. They had faced extinction and found transcendence, fought darkness and discovered light. And in the space between stars, a new chapter of galactic history began, one where ancient enemies became new allies, and the hunger for destruction was transformed into a hunger for growth. The dawn of a new age had arrived, and this time, no one would face it alone.